Yeah, we're good there.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So I will do my best here to move through this. But hi, thanks for having me. I'm the program manager at Fedora, as mentioned. I'm here today just to give a kind of brief update on what the community is up to, talk a little bit about what we're working on and what we have planned for the future. I kind of called this presentation what we're doing, what we tried, what's working and what's not, because I think a lot of those things are, really important pieces about what makes the Fedora community so strong and so robust in what we do. So our willingness to try new things, but then also the way that we've approached challenge and, what we learn from those challenges to kind of do things differently the next time around. So this is really quickly the current state of the community. We're on version 6.4, which was released not that long ago. This update was some minor bug fixes as well as updates to the migration validator and the migration utils, which are those tools that Emily just talked about that were built from the IMLS grant that aids from migrations from Fedora 3 to Fedora 6. 6.4 also has updates to the latest version of the newest OCFL specification, so the Oxford Common File Layout. From the Fedora side of things, we're happy to report that all migration pathways from previous versions of Fedora are open now to 6. So the grant work specifically was targeting 3 to 6 migrations. However, there does exist a pathway from 4 to 6. It's a little more complicated, but there is documentation. It is possible, and we have seen it done. There's roughly 350 known installations from around the world of Fedora, and we are learning of new installations, people spinning up new instances of Fedora 6 and reaching out. And this is happening a lot more frequently, which is awesome for us, thanks to some new outreach efforts. Last year, just briefly, we made some temporary modifications to our governance structure and our governance group, and we now are operating under one unified governance group instead of a separate leadership and steering group. And this has really given us the opportunity to bring better representation to the table and the decision-making table, especially during this critical post 6.0 release period, where leadership really needed to be present and engaged and help with advocacy and adoption of the new software. So we've been really focused on working collectively in kind of like a tight-knit group. And we've also been working on streamlining some of our communication channels. So to meet our community members where they are, lower the frequency of certain things, really to strike that right balance between engagement without overwhelming people. So this is the what we've tried and what we're doing part of the talk. If you do follow along in any of our communication channels, you've likely seen many of these things that are listed here. So I don't want to dig in too deeply, but essentially what happened is, we released 6.0. We realized that there wasn't a super extensive technology roadmap. So we built 6 based on some extensive community feedback and input as kind of a solution to things that were maybe less than ideal about previous versions of the software. We wanted to get people back into a version of Fedora that felt like, their really beloved version of Fedora 3. But beyond that, we hadn't really considered what we were going to do past 6.0. So we spent a year doing some very intentional strategic planning with governance and key stakeholders from the community. And the outcomes of that work are being actioned now. And, we're following up on a lot of the recommendations that were made from the strategic planning there. But one of the most important things that we have done is these community information gathering sessions. So we've done them twice now. And when I say we, I mean governance, the program team, and we've done them to ensure that we're hearing from the community. So oftentimes we would start these community information gathering sessions when we're unsure of how to proceed, or we're not sure what the majority of our community members think or want on a particular topic. So the first round we did in 2021, which was right around the time that we were releasing 6. And the purpose of this was to understand when and if folks were going to migrate. So we wanted to be prepared for this mass onslaught of migrations, but we also needed to learn about institutional use cases, find out what versions people were on, and we wanted to hear from people that weren't just in administrative type roles. We extended the invitation to developers, metadata librarians, people that would actually have hands-on, be touching the software regularly, so we could get their perspective on things. A lot of times at governance, it is administrative or higher level, and so we needed the technologists to come and tell us about what they were doing. So this for us was a really great pulse check on the community to see where everybody was at and what their plans look like for the future. We're now in the midst of a second round of these information gathering sessions, and this one is more focused on helping to build that future technology roadmap for Fedora. And we're not talking like immediate future, but this is for us a way to listen to our users and understand how we can focus our work for the best interest of the community as we think, beyond 6.0, once we get the majority of the community there. So a lot of times we think we might need one thing, or, as the group of governance, we have a need, but maybe that need doesn't speak to the entire community. So we can't assume that what, we want, we need to give the community members this opportunity to come and talk and outline their use cases. So we've done 3 of 6 of these scheduled technology sessions. There's a link at the end of the slide. If you haven't participated in one and you would like to, registration is still open and there's lots of space. So the more voices we can hear from, really the better. And another thing that we've done is gone back to conferences to meet users face to face. So I'm sure everybody here knows that the value of an in-person meeting and the hallway conversations that you have is so much more deep than a virtual conference. You get an opportunity to hear things a little bit differently and engage with users. So we plan to do more of that. To get back to as many key conferences, to share user stories, talk about work being done by community members, and really just being available to meet people. We've also been working on providing some non-technical involvement opportunities for the community. So we've done some things like adjusting our tech meetings to make it more inclusive and inviting individuals to come and ask questions who maybe feel like they're not tech savvy enough to come and participate in something like a tech meeting. We also offer now a monthly open office hours, which accommodates different time zones so that we're available to our community and our users in different ways. There's also things like a wiki and website working group, which is a nice way for community members to get involved. It doesn't involve development, and engaging with our members in different ways by collaboratively writing some special topics blog posts about their institutional use cases, migration efforts, things like that. We also wrapped up the IMLS grant, so the migration toolkit is now available on the Fedora Wiki. And then we're focused on some community-driven feature development. So this is stuff that has come back through those information gathering sessions, through some community surveys. I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit because it is certainly involved, but this is things that have been specifically asked for by community. So obviously there have been speed bumps though. This is the what didn't work part maybe. Like I was mentioning, we had this idea that once 6 was released, everyone was just going to migrate to it right away. We could start thinking beyond that, start thinking of what 7 might look like. But we learned very quickly in those initial information gathering sessions that there's just so many other factors involved in migrations that we can't dictate when migrations happen. So we need to be available, and we need to make sure as a community that we're offering the right support for people when they're ready to go. It's obviously a long process and it's not going to happen overnight. So making sure that we're prepared and ready to support our users when they need it. We've also had some significant technology staff turnover within the program in the last year. I think we've definitely had some really great voices come in. We've seen some familiar Fedora faces, unfortunately, leave us, but that kind of poses its own problem in that these people hold such strong and deep institutional knowledge. So right now we're very focused on intentionally sharing and trying to spread out that Fedora specific knowledge so that this is going to serve us for the long term, right? We know that it's inevitable that people will rotate and people will move on, but we need to make sure there's not a knowledge gap when they do. And the last thing I just want to say briefly is acknowledging the past while continuing to look forward. So being okay with saying, you know what, that didn't work, or maybe that was a wrong decision, but then ensuring that what we do next is based on the learning from, the past mistake. And I think the biggest thing here for us that we've learned is really going back to the community, involving the community, listening to what people are saying, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If I've met you at a conference and you were hesitant to say something negative about community, we can't change if we haven't heard it. So you need to not be afraid to come forward with that feedback, because we can't make change without it. So as we're working on planning for the future of Fedora, we want to get it right. So really hearing the community out in as many ways as possible. So this is really kind of briefly what we have planned. I'm not going to go into it too deeply here. The slides will be available. That community technology development that we're working on, some more community engagement opportunities. But these are things that we have on the slate. I do want to share this with you though, and just show, that we've been patient and this list continues to grow all the time. And we're so excited about this. So this is current users operating versions of Fedora 6 right now. That list has grown. It's probably doubled in the last few months, which is great to see. We do have an ongoing list of folks that are migrating to Fedora 6. And so if you have interest in or want to connect with any of these users, they have also graciously offered to connect and talk about their migration story. So just reach out to me and I can connect you. Some resources and anything that you need there. And lastly, I just wanted to thank you for the time, and you've got my email address so you can reach out whenever you need.